Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well today. And man, super excited about today's stream. Got some things that, man, I want to talk about. We are, man, we're live all over the place. We are live everywhere. And I love it if you're watching this, and I see that many of you are on so many different channels, to just say hello and say where you're watching from, because I like to talk to people. It's super fun to have some conversations with you guys. So I see some people coming in on Facebook, on YouTube, and man, that's great. I want to go ahead and give you guys a link. It'll be in the comments wherever you're watching this. I would love for you to switch over, if possible, and watch on YouTube, because that is the platform where I'm going to be spending a lot more time, and I think that'll be helpful. Man, today it's been a day today. I don't know if you'll have one of these coffee cups. It's one of these, like, it stays warm coffee cups. This stream is brought to you by Ember. I'm just kidding. It's not. But that'd be cool if Ember wants to sponsor me. That would be awesome. But it keeps your coffee warm. It's pretty cool. It just doesn't keep it warm long enough unless it's on the charger. So if we could keep it warm for like 12 hours, that would be incredible. Super incredible. So, hey, I see you guys on here. Would love to know, just for you to say hi, where you're watching from. I would love it if you're on YouTube to go ahead and like this, and would be awesome. If you're not watching on YouTube, then you're watching on Facebook. Some of you are watching on Twitter. I would love for you to switch over to YouTube. I put a link in the comments, and for you to watch on YouTube and like it, because that would be legit. Anyways, so today I want to talk about how do we crush the enemy within. You know, it's super important to understand. You know, as I've been coaching some clients and have transitioned from, you know, where I thought I was gonna, where I started out as a business coach, and then as a health coach, to truly where God has me is helping trauma survivors find hope. Because, man, the more that I'm talking to people are just stuck in their past and in the things that, and some people don't even know they have trauma. They're like, man, what is trauma? I don't even know what that is. And there's so many different types of trauma. And if you've seen on my Instagram that, hey, Kay Krause, good to see you here on Instagram. I mean, you're so faithful, and would love, Kay Krause, to have you on someday. So we need to work that out. Anyways, a lot of people have gone through so many things in their life, and man, they're just not really sure what to do, and they don't know where it is. They don't know where it came from, and they just feel totally stuck in life. And man, today I want to talk about self-doubt, and where that comes from and what we can do about it. We're gonna start with just kind of what that looks like. Why do we have self-doubt? What is self-doubt about? And then I want to talk about where we see in the Bible that we can go to help us to fight some of that self-doubt. Because, man, that is a true enemy in our head. Is this self-doubt? We think less of ourselves. We think, man, I'm nobody. I can't do anything. We have all these thoughts, and man, I want to break that down. And man, if you're watching this, just say hi in the comments. Say hello. How you doing? If you're watching on Facebook or anywhere else, Twitter, man, I would so glad you're here. If you could click the link and join me on YouTube and subscribe and like, that would be great. So, understanding the roots of self-doubt, and what I want to focus on is the effect of trauma and what that does to us as we are dealing with self-doubt. And you may be thinking, man, Michael, I don't think I have trauma. And that's awesome, man. And we still have things in our life that slow us down. Kelsey Lackey, man, what's going on, brother? Good to see you on here on YouTube. Man, it's good to hear from you. I love that post you put on Facebook the other day. That was so good. And worship does help self-doubt. Worship does help self-doubt, both worship in singing and really worshiping the Lord with our life. Man, Kelsey, you still are you still cooking? Man, you were like the chef, bro. You could cook some sausages and chicken, dude. Do you remember that, dude, when we would do that? Hey, Wendy, so excited that you're here on YouTube, and I'm excited to get to meet with you today. That's gonna be awesome. And my man Barrett Hancock, what up, dude? I see you out there grinding on the run. Are you Barrett? Are you doing the half marathon or marathon coming up in Chattanooga? I need to know that because people are talking about it, but nobody has signed up. So I would love to know that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is fun. You guys on here, Wendy and Kelsey finger licking barbecue. There you go, my man. I love it, Kelsey. Dude, you were the man. You still are the man. It's so great to connect with you on here. Barrett, good. I'm so glad you're doing that. Are you in the half or the full marathon? And by the way, we're going to get into the trauma thing here in a second with self-doubt. Again, this stream is brought to you by Ember cups. They need to last a little longer. So Randy, my man, Randy Outdoor Adventure. Y'all need to follow my man Randy. He's a good one. And so hey, if you're watching on Facebook, I'm so glad you're here. But I would love to get started as we talk about the roots of self-doubt. So here's what I know. Traumatic events in our lives, and go ahead and keep commenting and saying hey to each other, and like this. That would be awesome in the comments. But trauma's effect on self-doubt is massive, because here's what it does. Man, when we experience things in our lives that are harmful, that hurt us, man, what it does is it actually changes how we view ourselves. And that could be, I see you, Dr. Weatherford. Good to see you on here, my man. But trauma, those traumatic experiences seriously can put seeds of that doubt and fear into our minds, and it changes how we view ourselves and even our capabilities. And so let's talk more about that. How in the world does that happen? How does trauma have that effect on us? Well, a few things happen, and this is everything that I talk about is most of the time going to be from personal experience. And so how did trauma impact my self-view and the way that I felt about myself was number one, for me, I suffered from childhood trauma. Again, trauma comes in many different ways. You can check out my last two Instagram posts and talk about the different types of trauma, but one is hypervigilant. Man, you're hypervigilant. You're always on the lookout and you're always ready. I know for me, that was a part of the trauma response that was coming up before I really went and got help. Was, man, I was carrying a gun everywhere. I never sat with my back to a door. I would never, man, everything was locked up, had cameras on every corner of my house. Man, I had like double backup cameras on my car. Man, I was just like, and it wasn't just about being safe. It was because I was so hypervigilant. My pupils were massive. From really, this started in 2016, and it just got harder and harder and harder as I moved on into the beginning of 2019, when I finally hit my breaking point and got help. And man, I would be preaching. Dude, I was so hypervigilant that when I was even preaching, I had a gun on me because I was so just afraid. And I just thought this was normal. Like I thought, man, I'm just protecting myself. This is what I do. And as I've now learned and I've grown, man, it really wasn't about protecting myself. It was just I had this hypervigilant. I felt like everybody was out to get me. And that right there can seriously affect your self-doubt. And that's an enemy within us that wants us to be like on high alert and like everybody's coming to get me. And man, it's just not true. And encouragement for someone that may be hypervigilant, and you may have PTSD. And here's some things that you can do to really help yourself. Why don't you turn off the notifications that you get on your phone, especially when it comes to the news? The news does not want you to have a good day. The news wants you to have a bad day, wants you to see all the things that are happening all around the world. And man, if you struggle with confidence and self-doubt, and you're constantly getting these pings on your phone about all the negative things that are happening, watch what happens when you turn it off. First, you're going to have more time in your head and more space to realize, oh, the world is not burning down around me. And it's really not as bad as the news is making it out to be. So trauma's impact on self-doubt, the first thing is how our response affects us is by being hypervigilant. And Kay Krause, man, I agree with you on Instagram. You're saying you haven't watched the news ever. Best decision. I agree. You just got to guard your heart with that. Guard yourself. So another impact when we have the roots of self-doubt and just we don't believe in ourselves is memory implants. And here's what that means. As you've experienced trauma, you have had memory implants into your head and into your mind. And what happens is we have unexpected, intense emotional responses to things. I don't know if you've experienced that to where man, just something happened and you're like, gosh, that was a strong, that was a really strong response, and I'm not sure where that came from. You know, maybe it was super emotional. Maybe you got really mad. Maybe maybe you heard a noise and it just freaked you out, and you're not sure where that came from. Man, if you experience that, will you just raise your hand in the comments like, yeah, that's me, man. I've experienced that before. No matter where you're watching, I would love for you, if you're watching on Facebook or anywhere else, that you would head on over to YouTube. There's a link in the comments. But if you've experienced moments where it's just like, golly, what just happened to myself because of this loud noise? Man, those are called triggers. Those are called triggers. And those triggers happen. And when they happen, you don't really know why it happened. And it's because of the trauma that you experienced. And it can be big T trauma or little t trauma. Those are two different types of trauma. Still can affect you. And man, these triggers, man, they're awful. And I've experienced them. And the neat thing is I'm going to talk about how do we deal with our triggers here in a second. I see that hand, Barrett, of you kind of having these triggers before. Man, it's hard, it's awful. But I want you to know it happens because of something that we experienced in our lives, and those are called triggers. And man, I've got tons, and I know what they are, and so I'm able to function in life now because I'm able to track them and work on them. Another impact of trauma when it comes to who we are in self-doubt, negative self-perception. Man, trauma significantly impacts how we view ourselves, even so much that we may feel weak. Or check this out. For me, I experienced childhood trauma, and I had a lot of abuse that happened to me, both physically and sexually. And there has been times when my negative self-view of myself happened because I would feel like all those things were my fault. Again, this all came up in 2019. And when I started feeling like, oh, I could have done better, I could have protected myself. And the truth is, I couldn't have. I was 5 to 10 years old. From 5 to 10, these things happened to me. And you know what? I couldn't have protected myself. It wasn't my job. It was my family's job to protect me. And that didn't happen. And so when we start feeling these negative self-perceptions of ourselves, we start to hate ourselves. Man, I want you to kind of think about where that came from. And this could come up in your current relationships. This could come up with the way that you look. This could come up in what you're eating. It could come up in a lot of different ways. And I want you to try to trace it back to a moment that you realize, oh my goodness, this is where that came from. you feel like you're nothing. You feel like you're never going to be good enough. You feel like you have all these thoughts about yourself. Well, the truth is, you are amazing. You are awesome. You are good enough. And it all comes most likely from somebody or something that happened to you, to where you feel like, man, I just took the fault. It's on me. And that feeds into crazy amounts of self-doubt. Another impact of trauma when it comes to the enemy in our head and the liars that we have that are happening in our head all the time is distorted risk assessment. Now check this out. Distorted risk assessment. And again, if any of you guys have experienced these things and you're in the chat, either wherever you're at, I would love for you to just say, man, that's me, or I've experienced that, or I know somebody that experienced that or is experiencing it. That would be just really helpful to see that I'm not just alone right here talking to myself. But distorted risk assessment. Here's what happens. Here's what happened with me. I was unable to assess risk appropriately, meaning that you can either underestimate where the risk is, or we think it is just crazy risky. So for me, how can I explain this better? Let me just read what I wrote here. Trauma distorts the ability to assess risk accurately, where we perceive threats where there isn't one, or underestimating where there is risk. For example, this goes back to the hypervigilance. When you are have a distorted risk assessment, man, you just feel like everybody's out to get you. You feel like the world is coming for you, and for me, everything was like negative. And here's what happened though. Now what I did and as I've started to work through my trauma, I went from everybody's out to get me and the world is coming to an end, to now I actually overcorrected to where there is no risk and everybody's great and everything's fine. And that's also a dangerous place to be, because everybody is not great and everybody is not for me. I've learned that everybody is not my friend. And I wish that everybody was my friend, but the truth is, as I've grown and as I've experienced counseling and therapy and learning these things, I got to be in the middle, to where, man, I can't be fearful of things and people and going out in public in large crowds, but I also can't just expect everybody to be great and wonderful and we're all buddies all the time, because it's not safe. And I've got to lock my doors, and I've got to do things like that to take care of myself. But man, trauma can seriously mess that up. I see you, Troy. Trauma can aggregate over years and manifest years later, leaving you searching for answers. Man, amen, brother. Man, I miss you, bro. I miss you. And you're the most faithful dude I've ever known in my life. Another thing about trauma, how it is isolation. Man, isolation, where you feel alone. And right now, 60% of Americans are feeling isolated, to where they are alone. And man, isolation happens because you think that everybody else has it together. Like when you go outside, when you're out there in the world, or you're at the store, or you're at church, or you're doing all the things, sometimes because of the things that you've experienced in your past, you can feel totally alone and that nobody understands you. And that creates isolation, to where you're like, I'm just going to stay here in my room, in this place, in my house, and I'm just not going to go out, because it is just not for you. And that isolation starts to just spiral and spiral and spiral, and then you just become even more isolated, and it just becomes worse. And so I want you to know this. If you or someone has experienced and is going through depression right now, and they feel stuck, and they feel like nobody wants to be with them and nobody loves them, and I want you to know, like the clients that I'm working with, the best thing that I do with them is to raise my hand and say, man, I get it, and it makes sense, and you can make it out of this. That is the best thing. And you know what? my therapist can do the same thing. She says, man, and that's why I go to a therapist and I have a coach, and they're able to say, man, I get it. And they walk alongside me. The greatest thing about the coach that I work with is, man, they're on call all the time. I can reach out to them at any time, and they help me with so many different things, not just dealing with my life and life coaching things, but man, I can reach out to them 24/7. And is it cheap? No, it's not. But it is so worth it to have that coach in my life. And I also go see a therapist. And that's what's so great about what I am currently doing with people is there's people that are feeling alone and they're feeling isolated, and they don't know who to reach out to. And they're not even ready to reach out to a therapist because they don't know if it's going to work and they don't know them. And what's been neat is man, I can raise my hand and say, look, I get it. I've been there. Here's some ways that you can get out of it. And we meet every single week, as long as they're in the package that truly has me meeting with them every single week. If not, I meet with them every other week or even once a month. But texting and calling is always there as well. And it's been neat to see them not feel alone, and for me to walk alongside them. It's pretty awesome. And so if you're feeling isolated, someone that's isolated, man, reach out. Reach out. I would love to let them know you're not alone. And sometimes a lot of people who are experiencing this trauma, they don't want to talk on the phone, and that's totally cool too. They don't want to do a Zoom call. They just want to text or email. That's totally great. And then the last thing, how trauma can impact your mind, and it's an enemy within our head, is misunderstood reactions. Because sometimes when you've experienced trauma and you are triggered, what happens is we try to hide that trigger because we don't want to look crazy or whatever it is in front of other people. And so what do? That actually enforces more isolation because you're like, man, no one's going to understand me. No one's going to get this. I'm going to freak out. And I get it, man. For me, loud noises could cause me to pass out at any second. Someone come up and scare me like crazy, it is awful. Man, I what happens in my brain is disgusting. There's certain smells, there's certain colors, there's certain things. Large crowds are hard for me still. But you know what? I've learned to be able to cope with these things. I've learned to find my triggers. I've learned to find these things. And I've also learned that if somebody doesn't understand my reaction, that's okay. I don't expect them to understand my reaction, but I have to live my life, and I'm going to live my life. And I don't want to allow these past traumas in my life to stop me from truly living my life. And so what do? Is, man, I understand I might have a moment. I might have a flood of emotion, which is hard. But as I have learned about dealing with this over time, I'm able to function at a really high level with the diagnosis of complex PTSD, with the diagnosis of depression and anxiety. And now I'm able to help people to be able to realize that their reactions are okay and they're going to get better. I promise you, as long as you're willing to do the hard work, as long as you're willing to invest in your life and to heal, they will get better. I promise. And so what happens whenever this enemy within us tells us all these things, because of all the deals that we have dealt with trauma. So what happens is we start to hit this cycle of doubt where we're just doubting ourselves over and over and over again. This doubt, it turns into fear, and then it turns into more doubt, and it just creates this loop of like, I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. I'm a failure. No one understands me. I'm in a dark, dark hole, and I don't know how to get out. And so we fill those thoughts, and we fill our mind with TV and the phone and friends and sex and drugs and things that those things that help us for the moment, but truly only makes it worse and worse and worse. And so what I want to do is I want to help us to get out of that today. I want to give some tips on how do we build our self-confidence. How do we get out of that cycle of self-doubt when we've experienced some hard things in our life? One of the greatest things is recognition and awareness. And I think if you're watching this, you understand that there is you understand that trauma is real. You understand that you've experienced some some hard things in your life and you recognize that. Now it's about being aware of that, because that is going to be the first step in breaking free, is that you are aware of it. And so how do you become aware so that you can function? One thing is to do a thought record. Here's what that means. When you are triggered in your life, when you start having these thoughts of, man, I suck, things are awful, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be good enough, you start seeing yourself coping in different ways. If that's gambling, that was me. I was a huge gambler when I was going through my stuff from pretty much 2016 to 2019. I was eating, food was a deal for me as well. And you just kind of, when you start to realize those things, you start to realize, man, loud noises are crushing you. You start to realize that people, just things are happening. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to literally write down the automatic thought that you had. Write it down. Write down the automatic thought. Again, what is a way that we can start walking free is we need to have a thought record. When you freak out, whatever that looks like to you, when you get really angry, what was it that caused that? Write that down. And then write down the automatic thought, like, man, I wanted to smoke that person. I wanted to hurt, or man, I wanted to get out of here. I wanted to run. And write that down. And the emotions that you felt in that time, and then the outcome of the circumstances. So for example, when you walk into large crowds, what is the automatic thought that's coming in? Like, turn around and run? Is it automatically, I'm going to stare at my phone so I can zone out and not see anybody around me? What are the automatic things that you are going through? And I want you to realize that and see that, because it is so huge to write that down. And then another massive thing is being mindful and meditation. Here's what that means. When you're able to be mindful of where you're at. For example, I went to a daddy-daughter dance on this week with my daughter, and it was awesome. It was incredible. Now, when I walked into this daddy-daughter dance, here's what's happening. It's super loud. There's a lot of men in the room, and they've got their sweet daughters. It's dark, lights. It's dancing. It's super fun for a lot of people. Now, for me, what happened when I walked in, I immediately felt this. Oh man, this is going to be hard. This is going to be really hard. And so what did I do in that moment? I realized, man, I wanted to escape. I wanted to get out, but I knew that wasn't the right thing. And so what did I tell myself? I told myself, you're safe, you're good. This is a fun thing to do with your daughter, because I knew it was. But the loud noises, the things going on, the dark. So my body said, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. But I knew, because I've done some work, I was able to be mindful of what was happening and be able to say, no, we're going to stay here and we're going to have fun. And it was great. It was outstanding. It was a super fun time with my daughter. But here's what I saw when I was at that daddy-daughter dance. I saw other dads walking in, and I saw them kind of like, oh, this is a lot. This is a lot. And what did they do? They went right to their phone, and they just stared at their phone, and they kept staring at it. And they would even, some of them went up in the bleachers and sat like alone, these men on their phones, instead of being with their daughters on the dance floor. And man, here's what I want you to know. Dad that felt very overwhelmed, I get it. I understand. And I wanted to go just love on all those dudes and be like, man, I just want you to know what you're feeling makes sense. It's overwhelming. There's a lot of noise in here. There's a lot of things happening. May feel awkward. And at the same time, it's not about pushing through, but it's about being mindful. You know what? Right now, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to be all in with my daughter, and I'm going to be okay, and it's going to be great. And I'm not going to stare at my phone because that feels good, because that's a way to isolate. And so again, recognition and awareness, having a thought record, and then being mindful of those situations. So how do we now build? How do we build self-confidence whenever we have experienced trauma and hard things in our life? Well, one of the greatest things that you can do is to be grateful. Man, being grateful is such a win. I mean, so much so that you can do a thing called a gratitude walk. Here, these are really cool. These are really cool. Meaning, if you're having a hard time, man, just go outside and like find a point. And notice I said outside. When we go outside, the vitamin D and being out in nature literally changes our brains. And so I encourage you, go outside and find like a tree or a rock, And every step that you take to that, and it may be really slow steps, like Lord, like I'm thankful for the Lord in my life. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for these different things in your life. Man, that builds self-confidence, because the opposite of it is you're not grateful, things are bad, the world's coming to an end, you're depressed, you're isolated, life sucks, work is hard, family's awful. Here we go again, and that cycle just continues. But man, you can defeat that with gratitude and being thankful. And as a Christian, man, I want you to know there is nothing else like being thankful for what God has done in my life. I'm so thankful for what he has done. That is like always number one. Always number one. If you don't know Jesus and you want to know, man, reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about that. And so, man, being grateful. Another strategy for building self-confidence is setting and celebrating small goals. Because here's the deal. Trauma and depression and anxiety are lying to you. Like it is a huge lie that it is telling you all the time, that you can't do anything, that you're not good enough, that all these negative thoughts are in your head, you're isolated, no one likes you, you have no friends, no one understands you, you're a weirdo, you're a freak, you're on medication, and there's all these negative things go on around you, which are lies. They are lies. And here's what I want you to do. What is a small task, a small goal that you can set? And I do this with all of my clients. And some of you are you've signed up to do a consultation meeting with me, and I just want you to know what we're going to do. Here's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to set up a small win for you. And I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to coach you to be able to hit that small win, because here's what happens. When you start hitting these small wins in your life, we start stacking them up. Those are stacking those wins. And when you stack all of those wins, you start to realize, oh, I got some good things going on. And then you move those to the side. Then you get another small win and another small win. And those small wins stack up and gives you the confidence, which is what depression, trauma, and all the things have taken away from you, is the confidence that you have in yourself. Sometimes we hear people say, like for example, for me, I run a lot and I love it. And you'll see, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see me say stuff like, yes, Kay Krause, I see you on Instagram, the compound effect and fear is a liar. But you may see me on Instagram and be like, oh, I got up at 4 a.m. and I ran, 8 miles, blah, blah, blah. And that's really good. And that's really good for people that run, but it's really not good for those who are depressed and they can't even get out of bed. They're watching that video like, there's no way I could ever do that. And for me, it took time to be able to get there. And for you, maybe the small win for you is just getting out of bed and brushing your teeth. Like, Michael, that's not no. There's someone that's watching this right now, and you feel so dark. You feel like you're in the darkness. You feel lost. You feel stuck. And just getting out of bed today and doing that small thing, that would be your win for the week. And I would be like, yes, way to go. It's not about you getting up and doing all these crazy things and making a list that's 40 miles long, and then you have to knock all those out in this week. That's not it. That's not how I coach people who are stuck. That's not what I do, because I don't think that's realistic. And so what are some small goals that you can set for yourself? And then another strategy, and we're almost done here. Another strategy is community support. Man, are there people around you that truly love you and understand you and they care about you? Maybe it's a church. Does that church love you and care about you? Do they know that you're hurting? Do they know that you're upset? Or are you walking in like everything, you have it all together? I would encourage you, man, go and talk to somebody. Get into a small group of people. Like a small group of people, like, man, Michael, I'm not doing that. And I understand that may be a huge step for you. That may be a massive step, is to get into a group of people who you don't really know. Well, for me, something I offer is group coaching, where you can literally sit in a group on Zoom and you just kind of are there with other people who are raising their hands and saying, man, yeah, I understand that struggle. And you don't have to talk. You don't have to turn your screen on. You're just in this group coaching that I offer. And it's a great community for people who are struggling. So you don't have to be alone. And if that's something you're interested in, man, you can see exactly how to do that. And you can click the link in the description. And I would love to get you connected. But man, maybe that's not for you, and that's okay. Man, there's so many groups out there. I'm not talking about Facebook groups. Okay. I'm talking about face to face with people, and churches are the best at having groups. I encourage you, find a church that is preaching the Bible and get connected. And if you need help finding a church, man, let me know. I've helped 2 people around the country find a church, and they are getting plugged in to these churches and into small groups. And so, man, again, strategies, these strategies for building self-confidence, I want to say them again: affirmations, gratitude. Gratitude. The second one is celebrating small wins and small goals. And then the last one is community support. Those are great strategies for building self-confidence. Kelsey Lackey, man, let's see what you said right here. I would love to. Let's see. Kelsey says, you're right about small wins. For me, motion helps. And being a big guy, my emotions tend to be big. So I made a 6-foot cross and carry around neighborhoods to activate conversation. Dude, you're next level baller. That's what I'm talking about, Kelsey. I'm not surprised that you do that. Man, that is awesome. And moving our bodies is such a big deal. Such a big deal. And I also want to encourage you in this, something I'm learning about our brain. And if you really want to heal your brain, and you really want to slowly get out of this place that you're at where you're stuck and you feel isolated, when you go outside and maybe you're on a walk, or maybe you're just in your yard, man, put your phone away, get the AirPods out, get the earphones out, and just be out there. Because when we go outside and we're on our phones, or we're listening to something, it actually, we don't have the same effect that it would have if we were just naturally in nature without all those things. I mean, literally just being outside in the sun, not on our phones. Man, I would encourage you to do that for 5 minutes a day and watch what happens. It is a healer. Why? Well, the Lord. The Lord. When we're out in his beauty, we're out in his nature, man, it's amazing how it heals us. All right, lastly, the last thing is what are some biblical strategies to fight the enemy within our heads? Here you go, man. Something that we teach our kids is faith over fear. Kay Krause, I hear you, girl, on Instagram. You're crushing it. Going outside changes sensory input and requires the brain to focus on off the traumatic things. Yes, for sure. Going outside's a game, and that's why I run. I don't run because I'm in a race. I don't I'm sorry. I don't run because I'm training for something. I mean, yeah, I do races, and those are awesome things. But I go outside and I run because it's a game changer for my mind. That's why I do those things. Isaac Sparks, how can someone facilitate these things for a loved one or friend who struggles with these things? Man, that's a great question, Isaac. When you say facilitate these things for a loved one or a friend who struggles, what are you asking right there, buddy? You're on Instagram right now asking, how can someone facilitate these things for a loved one or friend who struggles? I'm not sure what you're asking about. What would you like facilitated? Also, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the description or in the comments. I would love to get to them and answer any questions you may have. If you could do that, that would be awesome. And if you are watching anywhere like on Facebook or Instagram, if you could switch over to YouTube, that would be great. So I can really see your hand and see when you're asking a question. It just makes it a lot easier. But I want to talk about now, and Isaac, I'll wait for your response there, buddy, to hopefully answer your question. Let's see here. All right. Biggest thing that the most important way to overcome the things that we have in our head is truly faith over fear. And that's something we teach our kids is faith over fear. You'll hear our kid. Well, you probably don't know our kids, but faith over fear, and they'll say those things. I mean, when you think about faith over fear, for you, when you feel stuck, you just got to have a little bit of faith that you know that it's going to be okay, that you're going to make it, even though it feels so dark and so heavy and like you're not going to make it. But I want you to know you are. You are. And it's just going to take a little bit of that faith. We can talk about David and Goliath. David had that faith to go and defeat that giant. Do you have the faith to defeat the giant in your life? And maybe that faith looks like reaching out to a counselor and just, man, I got to do this. I just connected I just connected somebody yesterday who they, you know, they could have worked with me. I could have coached them, would have been awesome. But I felt like for them, they needed a therapist and someone that I trusted. And man, they got connecting with them, and they're meeting with them. I'm so excited. Or maybe you're like, man, I would like to talk to me, Michael, and that's a big step for you. Well, I would love to meet with you and talk with you and see if any one of my plans could help you, and you're willing to invest in your life. And it is an investment. And working with me is an investment. It's not free. And why does it cost money to work with me? Here's why. Because some people truly need to realize that they're worth it, and they're willing to spend the money on themselves. We'll spend money on so many other things. We'll spend money on fast food. We'll spend money on movies. We'll spend money on all the things. But how many times do we spend money truly on our mental, spiritual, and physical health? You know, you could probably have a gym membership somewhere that you're not going to. Well, why don't you invest that into your life? And I would love to work with you. I mean, we can break it down, and we can talk about cost and all the stuff, so that you're not alone. Or I can also, you know, we could have a free, our first call is free. And I can say, man, here's some things you're struggling with. Here's some therapists in your area that I would reach out to. Isaac, okay, back to your question, buddy. Like community or helping them cope with their depression. Isaac, the biggest thing that, again, you're a pastor. The biggest thing that you can do with people is to is to encourage them. Number one is to find community. But when someone is so stuck, and someone is just so stuck in their depression and their in the things that they're going through, somebody reaching out to them who doesn't really understand can actually at times make it worse because of all the words that we say. Here's what you can do, is just go and sit with them. That's it. Because they feel alone. And they don't want advice. They just want you to sit with them. They don't want you to read the Bible. They just want you to sit with them and ask them what they need. So what do you need? Or this question's really good. How can I serve you today? How can I serve you today? Man, you can bring me ice cream. Done. I'll bring you ice cream. You know, how can you serve them? I would find a trusted friend that's been there. I mean, you know, Isaac, I'd be more than happy to reach out, send them some of my YouTube videos and show them the things that I've been through, so that they connect and they realize, oh, this guy's not just, you know, getting this out of a book, but he's actually lived it. And I'd love to help them. Encourage them to join, to come to church. I know it's a big step for people that are depressed and down. Going to church is like so hard. Large groups, it's just a lot. And so I don't know if that helps you, man, but any other questions, man, let me know. And Isaac, reach out to me, buddy. You know how to catch me. But man, thinking about biblical strategies for defeating the lies in our head and to live fearless. You know, think about Peter. When Peter, if you don't know, Jesus was walking on water, and Peter said, Jesus, is that you? If so, tell me to come to you. And what did he do? He got out and started walking on water, and then he started to sink. And when he was sinking, here's what's so amazing is that Jesus reached his hand out to Peter and said, you know, grab my hand. And what did Peter do? He grabbed his hand, and Jesus pulls him up. And I want you to know right now that when we have the faith in Jesus Christ, that he is going to be there for us, I want you to know his hand is reaching out. And when I was going through my stuff and in the darkest times, man, I didn't see his hand. I didn't see his hand. I didn't see the hand of the Lord, even though it was all around me. It was all around me, his hand. It didn't look like a physical hand, but it looked like people that loved me. It looked like the facility that I went to on site. It looked like EMDR. It looked like a lot of different things. And his hand is right there. His hand is right there. And then in this verse, Isaiah 41:10. Isaiah 41:10 says this. Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, comma. Man, if you're stuck right now and you feel like you're in the depths of hell, do not fear. And I know that's like, okay, it's cute. No, really. Do not fear, comma, for I am with you. Whew. You see that? He is with you. You are not alone. He is with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. And just think about that. How do those promises, how can that be a source of strength and courage for you today? Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. And maybe for someone that's like that, that doesn't help you. You're still fearful. You're still struggling, and that's okay. But I want you to know for you, if maybe somebody sent you this video or you watch this, I want you to know that you are not alone and you don't have to do it alone. If I can help you in any way, I would love for you to reach out. If you have a family member that is struggling, if you have somebody in your life that is going through it, if you're a parent that has a kid that, man, they are so stuck and you don't know how to get them out of it, and you see that they are just kind of filling their time with screen time and all this stuff, and they're not the same kid that they were, man, reach out. I would love to help in any way possible. And again, if that's working with me, then great. I would love that. Are you ready to invest in your kid or in yourself? And man, or that someone needs it, man, have them reach out. Have them reach out, and we'll get them connected with myself or a therapist, no matter where you live. Let's see these questions. Thank you guys for asking questions. This is really good. Kay Krause, how do you encourage someone to go to church when they just want to stay home and decompress from the stress of the work they do during the week? How do you encourage someone to go to church? Well, honestly, I think that it takes little steps for someone to go to church. And as a pastor currently, not working in the church, but someone who worked in the church, there's and you know this, I'm pretty sure, that there's certain things that the church will do to draw a big net. And when the church does these events and these different things that draw a big net, those are great times for people who don't want to go to the Sunday music preaching part. And these big nets, these events, these outreach things, and they do a lot of stuff for kids, and they do a lot of stuff for adults. They do women's events, they do men's events. Most churches are doing these things, and the reason for it is so that we can invite our friends who would never go on a Sunday morning to connect and see that church isn't as dark and scary as they think. And Tina, I see your question here on YouTube. I'm going to get to that here in a second. But I encourage you, when you really know that someone should go, which we should, then see what events are coming up at multiple churches in the area and try to see if they'd be interested in going to that. Find out what they're interested in. Maybe they love barbecue, or maybe they're into sewing. Those are different things that can really draw people in to the community of like-minded believers. And I would encourage you to look into that, of all church, not just your church. See what's there. Yeah, I'm sure that your church is a great place, but sometimes it's not about getting them to come to our church. It's about getting them to go to a church, as in the kingdom of God. I mean, it's not about just this one thing. And so many churches have so many great things. And that's why larger churches are such a draw, is because there's so many different things for people to do. And Kraus, also with your question, sometimes them staying home and decompressing from the stress of the work week is a way that they escape, and they're just not really wanting to go to church. And so what I would do is say, hey, let's make a goal with this person, whoever this is. If I was meeting with them, this is exactly what I would do. I would tell them, I would say, hey, we'll call this person Jill. Hey, Jill, I know that you used to go to church. You're a believer. Man, I would love to encourage you to do that. And so here's what I want you to do, or here's what I'm going to do. This is what I would do. I've done this for some of my clients. I will find a church that has something that they're interested in. I'll reach out to that church and I would say, hey, I've got a client that's interested in coming. They're going through a hard time. Tell me about this event. Tell me about this thing. And then I would plug them in. And I don't have that church reach out to them. I just encourage them. Okay, so in 2 weeks, a big goal for you is for you to go to this thing. And man, that's one way to do it. I don't know if that helps, but That's what I would do. Tina Bird, man, good to hear from you, Tina. I want to put this question up here. What do you do when it's a parent that caused the childhood trauma and he or she has manipulated so many family members so it helps cover up what they have done? The family has believed him or her. And then you wrote, that's how good the lies and manipulation comes out. And first of all, man, that is awful. Man, that is, Tina, I hate that. So what do you do when it's a parent that caused the childhood trauma and he or she has manipulated? So, I mean, this is a big question. So I don't know the overall situation at all. I don't know the situation, but let's see here. I've been through EMDR, a therapist, and stayed at a serenity retreat. Awesome. I've done all those things. Amazing. It's still so tough for me. Nothing I do or say with family helps because, okay, but to rip everyone out from me. So here's again, I don't know the whole situation, and I'm so glad that you have done those things. I think it's incredible, Tina. You're an amazing woman. You're a fighter, and I wouldn't mess with you. And I would say keep doing the EMDR, keep doing those things as much as you can, but also you got to start setting boundaries. You got to start setting boundaries. For me, I have set boundaries with my family. One of the hardest things that I've had to do. So much so that I've blocked a lot of them on all my stuff. I don't talk to them because I can't. And that's really, really hard to do. So much so I can't even talk about it on here because I will be triggered. I know it's a trigger for me to talk about certain things. And one of those is the boundaries. And because of that, I have set boundaries in my life to where I have cut them off because ultimately it's not, it doesn't help me. Well, they're family. It doesn't matter. If they are hurting you, manipulating you and or your family, then it's time to cut and go. You got to take care of yourself. My question would be, what would you tell your daughter or what would you tell your son to do in this situation? Most likely you would say, man, you need to get away from them. You need to move on. They are hurting you and it's time to go. And so I would work through you. I would work through that situation. I would help you to take those hard steps of those boundaries and watch what happens as the kind of starts to fall off of you. And Tina, if anything I can do to help, man, I would love to help in any way whatsoever. If walking through that process, or to hear more of that story. And there's people on here, Kay Krause. I mean, you're so awesome. She's talking on Instagram right now. Kay Krause, you gotta switch over to the YouTube. That's where everybody's hanging out. We're all over here on the YouTubes, and man, she says to you, Tina, know that some of your biggest supporters are not going to be your family, and that is so true. That is so true. My family doesn't look like flesh and blood all the time. It looks like the people that love me and know me and understand me. And so want to encourage you that way. Guys, this has been an amazing, amazing live stream. I never expected to go an hour, and it's been an hour. Thank you guys who stuck in there and watched. Again, wherever you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the places, I would love it if you could go to my YouTube channel, and if you could subscribe and like. I try to go live every Thursday. Every now and then I go on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I am going live, and I'm bringing back Andrea again, who I was on here a few weeks ago. And we're going to talk more about, we're going to talk a lot about recovery. We're going to talk about, man, what it was like for her whenever she opened up on the past live stream, and what that did for her life and for her walking in freedom. So again, so glad you're here. Man, I'm a Christian life coach who helps trauma survivors find hope. And if you have anybody that you know that is looking for that, please have them reach out. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later.